Alright guys, Scrappy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The Black Ops 6 season is nearly here. There's plenty of rivalries up and down the league, but a big one no doubt is going to be what happens between the Cloud9 team for the new season and what we expect to be the new Gentlemates roster coming out of Los Angeles. The breakup of the New York Subliners roster that won Major 4 and made the World Championship Grand Final this year is definitely continuing in terms of the drama and the spice associated with Sib making it very clear that he's not exactly on great terms with those guys and definitely seems satisfied to be in a position to get rid of them from his roster. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Congrats to Cap and his fiance as well. Another ring in the books for Cap coming soon, of course. 2 rings, Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, now a third here received in 2024 to 2025. OpTic race to Master Prestige, that's happening shortly. There was some talk about, okay, who's going to get involved? Turns out Scump, Daltouche, Maniac, Method, and Hitch, that's going to be the 5. And then maybe there's going to be a setup for guests to come along as well. Because, of course, the OpTic Texas boys, they've got to play the game. They've got to grind the game. They've got to learn. They've got to play Search and Destroy tournaments, stuff like that. Scump will be getting involved in the race to Master Prestige. Of course, there's been some discussion as to how many people they have involved in this, whether it's going to be taken that seriously compared to other things. What if OpTic Texas are in the grand finals of some sort of Search and Destroy tournament against FaZe? Scump's probably going to go and watch that for a couple of hours. So, who knows? But it's happening soon. There is a guest setup as well, as you guys can tell here. So it's possible that somebody else can hop on as well and have a go to keep the guys ranking up. This is Kenny. I thought this is relevant just because what aBeZy had to say the other day when he was like only 8 players in the league, 8 to 10 players actually look after themselves. Most pros aren't hitting the gym. Most pros aren't really taking care of their nutrition. And it's a big deal, I think, in any sport. I mean, like every sport at some point in the last 50, 100 years, I mean, largely, often like 20 years really, has had some sort of revelation in terms of, well, physical fitness and taking care of the body a little bit better. Like in Formula 1, kind of famously, Michael Schumacher really pioneered actually being on top of every single component of your life to be the best in the Formula 1 car. And I think the same applies in other sports too. It's pretty evident why, the level of play and world records keep falling. There's various reasons for that, but whatever. Kenny is definitely on board with this idea. He's been in the gym. He's obviously back from Japan over the last couple of weeks, and he's got more vlogs coming soon as well. I think the level of content we're going to get this year is going to be nothing short of spectacular, actually. Kenny's doing more content. Obviously, the Los Angeles Thieves boys, that's going to be great. And if you look at many of the top theoretical rosters for next season, they have at least some individual member of the team who is, I don't know what that was, rather entertaining. And, Sib is probably that man for the Cloud9 team, as we shall dive into here over the coming minutes. There was a bit more reaction as well to the Barcelona event. If you guys didn't see yesterday's video, the CDL schedule has seemingly been leaked on some level, and we have a Barcelona event apparently coming up for the upcoming season. As Looney says, if there is a Barcelona event, I guarantee that Heretics are going to play OpTic first rounds. That would be a storyline, especially if Vickle stays in the starting roster, as he may well do. Of course, there was other reaction as well from the likes of Lynz, of course, French player, and he is definitely relevant to this discussion because we're pretty sure he's going to be leaving the Minnesota Rocker and joining that new Gentlemates team that has effectively replaced, bought out, I don't really know, the Los Angeles Guerrillas roster, and now they're forming effectively Subliners 2023 2.0 with Lynz instead of HyDra. That seems to be the play as it stands. Not exactly sure what Looney and Simp were up to here because, well, as Looney says, thank God I made my flight to Atlanta Airport was an actual zoo. Gate agent was headed to close the gate when I got there. So, of course, Looney, head coach still of the Minnesota Rocker. Those guys are based out of Texas, I think. Still, at least that was the plan over the last couple of years. Simpano does fly a fair bit between, I think, maybe where he lives and then back in Atlanta, where the guys are obviously going to grind from. And I guess that's the plan for the start of the new season, right? Getting to the facility where the boys are going to play as soon as the game launches. That's why we're seeing lots of guys fly back to Texas at this moment. Just a quick update on what's going on with the FormaL situation in OpTic We know that they're probably going to make some serious roster changes. FormaL has made it quite clear that he's not playing with those guys ever again, certainly not next year, and he wants to form a God squad on OpTic if he wants to keep on playing. And you can understand it when they came second literally every single event this season, including last year's World Championship Grand Final. So it doesn't get much worse than this in many respects for a competitor like FormaL. This was interesting to note. So Space Station Gaming, they won the World Championship they have also hinted at getting into Call of Duty as well. It's been quite a discussion point as to whether those guys are going to try and make the transition to COD, and I honestly think they were interested and probably still are interested. Just right now, can you believe that in the Call of Duty League, there are more interested parties looking to buy a CDL slot than there are slots available to get, either from teams that may or may not be looking to sell, or from the expansion which doesn't yet exist. But I think thankfully this year, Vegas Legion are going to go, Los Angeles Guerrillas are going to go, and then maybe next year, Ravens go, Boston, we'll see what they decide to do, if they stay poverty or whether they come back. Hopefully they're not full poverty this season, but we'll see. We don't want any more poverty orgs. SSG, I don't think, would be a poverty org, but, would they be competing for championships? It's a question. But, Unit makes it quite clear here that OpTic tried to buy Stellar last year, which they thought they could do, I think, which is why they made the change for APG. Then he says he shut it down. Maybe OpTic wants to buy a player from us again. Question is, so I shut it down or not this year? Nothing's confirmed, he says. So interesting development, really. Look, if FormaL is smart, he'll be on the phone to the SSG boys and see, look, do you guys want to leave? Come play with me, Bound or Legend or Eco or, obviously Stellar. Probably unlikely, and if that doesn't happen, then of course phone up Renegade and Frosty and the FaZe boys and see if they can make anything work over there. But let's talk about some of this drama, right? So this was a tweet from Sib yesterday that, well, as soon as I saw it, I thought, you know what, let me just screen grab this one real quick just in case it disappears, as of course it eventually did. So this was the tweet: I burned bridges so I could swim. Now we know that these guys, they like to tweet out some cryptic stuff, but I think it's relatively clear based on Sib's replies, which still do exist. There was this one, there was also this one as well. So, well, I think it's quite clear that he's talking about the Cloud9 situation, the roster drama that happened this offseason, basically, when the World Championship is over, the Esports World Cup is over, they don't get the result they want, they go down to OpTic in the early part of the tournament once the bracket play begins, and it's not like they were looking particularly crisp up to that point anyway. The tournament then ends for them. Sib, there were rumours that they weren't getting along so well behind the scenes and that they were going to make a change for Sib. That was then confirmed. Sib announced himself as a restricted free agent. This is his most recent tweet, apart from the leaving Dallas one, when he was an RFA, allowed to explore options, and it looked like they were going to get rid of Sib and look for a replacement alongside Skyz and HyDra. Of course, then it turned out HyDra wanted to leave as well. He wanted to go, well, he had better options available on Los Angeles Thieves to play with Scrappy, so he was out the door. And then it left a decision for Cloud9. Do you keep on Skyz and Skyz, or do you keep on Sib? And while they were making this decision, there was all sorts of drama happening publicly, obviously. When Sib was talking about the way that that team approached practice and other things like that, obviously getting to the facility nice and early, doing hours of VOD, saying how, some days they were working 9 to 9, right? It was a couple of hours of like gym in the morning, getting there early, doing VOD, practicing all day. And Sib's opinion was like, look, they won a world championship, and now they think they know the formula, right, to winning consistently. Sib wasn't so convinced. So certainly by saying these things, and although he tried to clear up the words, there's no doubt that the relationship with the players on that team and also the organisation, let's say not the org, because he's still on the org, but the coaching staff on that org, right, ReeaL and Sender, they're both now gone from the franchise. So it's been quite fascinating because Sib was clearly not happy with the way things were handled. Shotzzy was obviously making it clear himself that they dropped him, nothing to do with gameplay, all outside of the game stuff. And, I think there was discussion at the time, okay, maybe there's not too much bad blood, but Sib kind of implied that, well, he said there's no bad blood for him to them, but he was like, there might be bad blood the other way around. So, and it never really felt like Sib was a massively perfect cultural fit for those guys anyway when he joined the roster. He did pretty well. They won an event, of course. They made the World Championship Grand Final, but of course it was not meant to be. So I think there's no denying that Sib's relationship with loads of the members of that team last year has now been corrupted, and that is probably true with Sib and Kismet, that's probably true with Sib and Skyz, that is probably true on some level with Sib and the coaching staff as well. ReeaL's now going to gentlemates with those two guys aforementioned, and Sender's going with HyDra over to the Los Angeles Thieves. But Sib tweeted, I burned bridges so I could swim, effectively implying that he needed to do this, he needed to cut those guys off, break the relationships to build them back up again potentially in the future, or simply so he could actually win on his new roster, right? right? That's the implication that Sib was like, I ain't playing with these guys, so either you get rid of me and I go to another team so I can do better, swim, i.e., or you get rid of them and keep me. That's eventually what the Cloud9 roster decided to do. They bet on the talent, which is theoretically Sib, and I think it's probably been the correct decision, but it does create a pretty fascinating storyline, right? Because going into next season, Sib versus the Gentlemates team, Sib versus even Thieves on some level, right? When it's going to be HyDra and Sender over there, is going to be pretty damn interesting, especially because the roster of Sib, Attach, Mack and Kremp, as it's currently rumoured to be, is good on paper, but maybe not especially spectacular. But do you think this roster is going to be competitive, and what do you think the drama's going to be like? Because you guys know me, I've always got an eye, of course, on a storyline, and thinking about this Kismet and Skyz Gentlemates roster versus Sib's Cloud9 next season, I think it's going to be pretty exciting. And honestly, on paper, they're pretty similar strength rosters, right? I don't expect either of them to be top 3, right? Top 4, I would say, is the ceiling, theoretically, of both of those rosters they've put together, but they should be in that kind of midfield pack. And whenever we see C9 versus Gentlemates, I think that it is going to be a great time, and especially if it happens on LAN, I think it's going to be pretty feisty. We know that Sib does like a good storyline. He got into a beef last year with 04, so he can definitely get into a beef, I think, with his own former teammates that, well, the relationship has clearly been burned on some level. So very much interested to your thoughts in the comment section below. Just one final thing to mention here for you guys, the COD all-time grid continues. So the votes are in, as you guys put in the replies, and we have the first two. I feel like we should have left John and Hook until the end, just so, or like overrated, underrated to the end, just so we could maybe get more votes, more opinions, I don't know. But the other ones I think I agree with. Karma is the smartest, FormaL is the best gunny, Crimsix is the greatest ever, and look, I know that basically all of these guys are on OpTic at some point or another, but that is kind of how it tends to be. Killer the funniest, no doubt about that. Scump highest skill, Ake's biggest villain, and then the two we got through yesterday, right? So best Slayer, best OBJ. So Scump wins best Slayer. I think that's probably fair. I think you've also got to wonder as well, like, how long would it be until anyone else can try and get one of these records right? Like, for example, a Simp, or, you know, Simp's probably a good example, because of the current generation, he's probably the closest to being in this position. Is Simp a Slayer on Scump's level? No. The best comparison I would say in the modern day is probably HyDra, right? But it's like, how many more years would HyDra need to dominate to be in the conversation to oust Scump on this list? It's just like so difficult to imagine, and this is why people are saying, oh, Simp's gonna go down as the GOAT, like if he wins 4 rings. I don't know if he will, I just don't, because the events are not the same nowadays, there's not as many of them, and I just don't, maybe you just have to accept that there are different eras of COD, and you can't really compare one era to another on some level, and maybe that's how it's gonna be as it is generally in regular sports, because I just don't see what Simp and HyDra and even like Pred or whatever could do in order to dethrone Scump as the best Slayer ever. Like, it's just difficult to imagine where you go to come up with an answer to that question. And even in the modern day, the objective doesn't really work so much, or it works obviously, but you know, the objective player this year was probably Dashy, Insight maybe. TP wins it here, best OBJ player ever, which I think is probably fair. Then we've got best support and most well liked. My vote for this, for best support, is probably Karma, to be honest, and then most well liked, I think I've got to say Big Timer, because you're trying to find a player that is like unanimously everyone likes and respects them. You've got to think it's Big T, in my opinion. So that's who I'll be voting for. But yeah, very much interested to your thoughts in the comment section below. As it stands, I might not do a video this evening because, as you guys full well know, not much is happening in the COD world at the moment. I could like scrap together a video, but I'll probably just save some of the topics for tomorrow unless something interesting happens this evening. We're only a few days away now from Black Ops 6. Very much interested to your thoughts, as ever, and all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.